If you want to support Slope's Game Room, then please click the links that you see in the top comments. Certain games, honestly, are not all that popular. Certain games require you to actually be a bit of a gamer to know that they even exist. However, if you are interested in trying new gaming experiences rather than the obvious top 10 games that Argos offer you, well, that's when games like this will fall onto your radar. And if you ask me, you will be better off for it. Yes, I know that Rez isn't the most obvious choice for a complete history, and I know for a fact that it's not going to pull in the numbers that the other big complete histories do. But for those of you guys out there that have played Rez or any of its other big re-releases, this one is for you. You see, Rez sadly was a bit of a latecomer to the Dreamcast, released at a time when most people had already jumped ship. Unofficial Dreamcast magazines were desperate for content, and the official one, well, that had already stopped almost a year and a half ago in the UK. But with all that said, those loyal Dreamcast goers that actually gave this game a chance didn't just experience a cool new game, but instead they got to experience a gaming sensation that few others were able to do before it. And that's why Rez, a game that the average Joe may not have heard about, actually ended up gaining a bit of a cult following. So, join me as we look into exactly why that is, as we look into everything Rez, from its creator's inspiration, its rather lengthy development, its many re-releases and remakes, and of course, the game itself. Welcome to Slope's Game Room. Honestly, when it comes down to collector's editions of this game, I own none, and I'm desperate for them all. The I Am 8-bit vinyl box set looks amazing, and the Japanese exclusive PlayStation 2 with vibrating headphones and vibrating, well, whatever this is, would look stunning on my growing gaming shelf, but sadly, they're not there. But with that said, this collector's set is based on the PlayStation 4 VR release, and this collector's set is based on the PlayStation 2 release. Yeah, I think we're in fact getting a little ahead of ourselves, guys. So, let's go back to the beginning. Welcome to one of the greatest decades to ever exist, the 1980s, and just to make it a little bit better, the 1980s in Japan. And whilst we're here, let me introduce you to Tetsuya Meguchi, or Miz as he's more well known to his friends and family, as he is very much the star of this story. You see, old Miz here didn't even want to make video games originally, but instead in his early days he was more interested in the MTV generation. Wasn't we all? Music itself is without a doubt the most popular art form to ever exist. However, during the 80s, the popularity of music videos exploded the medium even further, and Miz simply wanted in. In his early days at Neon University College of Arts, he studied media aesthetics and attempted to merge his ideas and his emotions found in the music that he was listening to and convert them into a visual format to go alongside the music. But this idea didn't last. He graduated in 1990 and felt that the medium of music video creation had become saturated and was no longer the exciting fresh concept that he once saw it as. However, video games? Well, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention. The very same year he found himself boarding a plane to the first ever international virtual reality conference, and from this his interest in gaming grew and grew. From here he ended up getting himself a job at Sega themselves in research aesthetics. And even though he didn't see himself as a game designer per se, he did in fact work on his first ever game of sorts, which I'm extremely happy to say that yes, I have played this one. And that game was Megalopolis. For those of you that don't know, Megalopolis is a game that was the part of Sega's AS1 motion simulator, which you, the rider, can be a part of.
As well as the traditional arcade machines, Sega are looking at a new generation of arcade simulators. A high-quality video image is projected in front of you as you move in synchronization with the path of your vehicle. The ride is called Megalopolis Tokyo City Battle. You are riding the latest generation of police pursuit vehicle chasing after arch-terrorists. Your pilot takes you through the skyways and streets of Neon Tokyo in the year 2054.
Sadly, the ride or game, whatever you want to call it, wasn't exactly a big hit for Sega, most likely due to the cost of the thing. But from what I remember, it was awesome. It was this ride and the music that went alongside it that took Mitsuguchi-san back to his visual and sound music video roots, and he quickly grouped together several other members in the same boat who worked on this futuristic godsend to work on his first proper video game. Sega Rally Championship was the game that the small team worked on, and it was quite the challenge as it was one of the first games made for the Sega Model 2 arcade hardware.
At the time, all of our programmers, all our engineers, all our artists, we only had to know how to work in 2D. Transitioning from 2D to 3D basically meant we had to do a major overhaul with all aspects of work. We didn't have any mentors or guidance, really. There was no one there who would come in and tell us what to do. We just had to learn it on our own.
It took only 1 year for the game to be created from beginning to end, and it was such a big success for Sega, several other racing games continued to be made by the team for the next several years. However, Mitsuguchi-san simply wasn't feeling it.
Sega Rally Championship.
In an interview, he explains that every single gaming company who was releasing these arcade racing games were after realism, and the future was, well, it was Gran Turismo. And the idea of a game like that bored him. You see, it was whilst Miz was in Europe researching cars for Sega Rally Championship 2 that he had a little time off and decided to visit Switzerland, which was when he decided to have a couple of days off and go to the world's biggest, for the time, techno parade.
It was in this massive arena with over 100,000 people and just one DJ in this booth, and I guess you could call what they were doing dancing? But it wasn't really, to me, people dancing. It was this massive movement of human bodies.
And as he watched the huge mass of people swaying and bobbing along to the beat, he decided to somehow make a game that captured that feeling. Shortly after, upon his return, he was given a life-changing opportunity back at Sega HQ. Sega was about to release one of the best and sadly last proper consoles, the Dreamcast, and the head at Sega at the time, one Shiroshiro Irimajiri, proposed a new game studio headed by Mitsuguchi-san himself with a very unique goal.
Create games that would reach gamers outside of their traditional audience. Teenage girls, musicians, non-gamers, artists, anybody land the rest of the gaming industry had yet to reach.
He decided to take on the incredibly rewarding, although obviously scary, challenge with open arms. He left the team that was working on Sega Rally Championship 2 and began pulling together a team of creative individuals from different backgrounds to make it happen. He even went as far as leaving the cold glass and metal building that was Sega's main headquarters and relocated to Shibuya in an attempt to really get the creative juices flowing. The area was filled to the brim with DJs, artists, neon lights, graffiti, fashion, and obviously lots of energy. The crew was tasked with researching as many of the surrounding areas as possible within that first year, constantly finding themselves in clubs and listening to local DJ, and as this, let's be honest, greatest research in the world continued to grow, Miz discovered a group of visual DJs called Mummy's Endorphin Machine. And it was this blend of music and video that reignited the interest in music video creation once again. And before you knew it, he went and hired several members of the VDJ outfit, and the seeds of Rez were finally born. The way he saw it was that if he really was going to make a game that was truly unique and designed for people that are not really gamers in the general sense, then creating something new just isn't enough. It needed to be something new from a group of people that did things their way, a fresh way, a way that hadn't been done before. These guys had talent, not in the game development sense, sure, but instead their talents were more focused on music, art, and the visual design. Stuff that perhaps the average Joe that didn't really play video games would be interested in. This is what grew his new development team from just one, himself, to 20, to 40, and then eventually 60 strong within only a couple of years. And with that, United Game Artists was born. as Mitsuguchi-san got to work on his sensual masterpiece aimed at casual gamers, or as he puts it,
people that bought a PlayStation 2 and watched DVDs on it, but hardly play any games.
The original design wasn't exactly what eventually came out. Originally, the idea was to actually go to other studios such as Namco and use classic music from classic games such as Space Invaders and Xevious. Heck, even the character you play was going to originally be something similar to an alien from Space Invaders or something. As you would expect, this idea was quickly abandoned though when he realised how hard it would be to acquire those rights. Surprised by this, in an interview, Miz was asked if he ever decided to use classic Sega music instead, which he replied,
"No, we didn't." I couldn't think of any music from Sega's STGs that really stood out.
Are you serious, Miz? Only joking, I understand what he was going for, and the end result didn't fall far from the tree, as it actually ended up being an incredible mashup of different forms of electronic dance music with trance being the main influence. The developers knew that people would draw comparisons with this game's title and the popular Underworld song of the same name, and even though the game didn't actually take inspiration from that track, they went ahead with it anyway. However, the team did in fact contact Carl Hyde from Underworld to get him involved. However, due to scheduling, he was unable to commit to helping. The same can be said for Aphex Twin, Primal Screen, The Chemical Brothers, Junkie XL, Fatboy Slim, and plenty of others. And with all of that said, for the shortest time, it actually started off a little more shaded with a bit more of a hip-hop vibe. Personally, a glitchy Namco video game music themed game, or a hip-hop music themed game, with possible help from people like Aphex Twin, Fatboy Slim and Chemical Brothers, well, that sounds great to me. But still, what we got was also pretty good too. Yep, at its core, Rez is still incredibly retro, taking inspiration from classic wireframe and vector graphics styled games of the 80s and injecting a good amount of Disney's Tron too. Because seriously, Japan bloody loves Tron. The idea was to take the feeling that you apparently get after your body gets taken over by repetitive dance beats which no matter how hard you try, you can't help but get sucked into. And on top of that, there really isn't anything else here that non-gamers can't pick up, play and enjoy. It's incredibly simple, incredibly addictive, and for those of you that plug this bad boy into a powerful sound system or high quality headphones, well, you're gonna get the ultimate gaming experience with this game.
What we wanted was to make a game where the more you played, the more it gave you this good feeling. And it just kind of escalated that feeling the longer you played. And it's something that's very easy to say in words, but if you really think about it, it's a very deep concept. But at the same time, a very primitive concept too.
Rez is a cult classic, pretty much the perfect definition of the word. At first it may seem like a standard railgun shooter and the perfect progression to something like Panzer Dragoon, and although I do love that game, for me, this did it better. You fly through this super network called Project K, and this guy, Hacker, also known as Swizak by fans of the game, is you. And it's your job to find Eden, the AI that is controlling the data flow found within, as she has become overwhelmed with knowledge and a virus has made her question her own existence. Threatening to power down the system, which has potential to cause issues outside of this world, your job is to locate her and stop her by shooting down viruses and firewalls along your way so you can reboot her. Yeah, it's probably best you don't explain the story to your better half that normally only plays Mario Kart games, but instead just let them play this game. When in the right environment, Rez is simply a masterpiece, building up a pumping soundtrack mixed in a certain way depending on how well you play it, and as you may have guessed, I can't recommend it enough. Well, actually there is one big problem with Rez, and that is it's too expensive. I mean, seriously, I don't even own an original Dreamcast copy myself anymore, but let me explain why. You see, Rez got re-released quite a bit, and pretty much every version after it's not only cheaper to own, but well, the later versions are better. Sorry retro collectors, but let's get real. Rez for the time was stunning, but as its cult following grew, so did its improvements in its re-releases. When it was finally unveiled to the public in 2001 at a PlayStation 2 party in Japan, Miz was worried. How do you show off a game that pretty much can't be explained, you may ask? Well, the answer is obvious. Dye your hair white, walk on stage, say nothing, and just play the game. As stated, this game came out extremely late for the Dreamcast, so late in fact that it came out on the PlayStation 2 in Japan at the exact same time. And yes, this is where the infamous trance vibrator packaged version came along with it. Yes, the trance vibrator, which plugs into your PlayStation 2's USB port, basically just vibrated. Chuck it in your pocket, under your shirt, anywhere. And yes, people have done that with it too. But besides the trance vibrator and the doubled frame rate, all in the expense of the graphics might I add, the PlayStation 2 version wasn't really any different. And honestly, both versions fall flat if you own an Xbox 360. Just look at the jump. Rez felt good on CRTs, but now it's finally released in true HD. And it even has the option to go back if you really want. Which you won't, because this is exactly the same game but done in true HD, and this game was always destined to be in true HD. There's not much to say here besides the fact that it looks prettier on a big widescreen HD TV. There's a couple of extra modes like a boss rush and what have you, but most importantly the core game is still here and it's the perfect way to play it. That is unless you have one of these. Rez Infinite is the final release of the game, and I'll be incredibly surprised if it will ever go further than this. Perhaps it makes the game a tad too easy in VR, but if you ask me, it's perfect, especially if you use a vibrating jacket at the same time. Okay, that's a tad extreme. Rez Infinite to me is everything that Rez always wanted to be. It's a perfect on-rails shooter that takes away the limitations of slowly moving left, right and up or down to shoot your enemies whilst pumping progressive trance music into your eardrums, completely absorbing you in its world. I've played every version up to this point, but this is easily the best, especially considering it has one final chapter or mode, whatever you want to call it, called Area X, which basically puts you in an open area, letting you line up your shots however you want and creating music along the way that I personally have never been able to replicate twice. This is the end of Rez. And that's fine with me. It was a 10 out of 10 game to begin with that somehow got better with age, if that's even possible. And if you have never played the game, it really doesn't matter if you're a gamer or not. It's 100% worth the experience.
Rez isn't a difficult game, so please be sure to try it at least once. As you play this game, you will surely experience rhythms that humans normally don't create. I know everyone has their own taste with music, but I'm quite sure that you'll find the sensation of Rez unique. Whether you find that interesting or not, of course, is something for you to decide after. So if you see Rez on display in a store or something, feel free to give it a try. It's a relax game.
Hey there guys, thanks for checking out the video. I want to give obviously a massive shout out to all of my Patreons. But first, let's give a massive shout out to G to the Next Level, who provided some voice clips for this video, and of course I'm sure you all recognised Kim Justice too. But yes, anyway, over to those patrons who a big special shout out going to Gary Pinkett, That's Retro Video Gamer, Mantis, Ryan Burford, Andrew Dalton, Ben Jackson, Jonathan Haywood, Christopher Turnbull, Phil Lowlins, Tomek Grabowski, Retro to Next Gen, Hawk89, Dina Robertson Dunn, Lefty Intrigued Gaming, Abby Morris, Tim Labonte, Asobi Quang DX, Tim Lunn, Hananas, Pixels.Limited aka Samuel Victor, Red the Beard, Conrad Constantine, Pretendo64, Kareemi Elephant, Casey Garner, Blitz, Hedgie, Kinglink Reviews, Gemma Mr. T, Cheese Shirts, Wobble and Bean, the Wonder Ducks, Ye Old Hamburglar, Bewright, Dan Petit, Mike H. Fell, Lucas Softail, Gregory Arden, Ronnie Method SSWB, Solex Captor, Jeremy Rodriguez, Nick Pollard, Bram Perez, Marcus Kimo Cup Tyndall, June the Geeky Dad, Richard Carter aka Fantastic Dizzy, Todd Paul Float G, and of course Petty Mew. If you guys want to get your name shouted out, come and see what I'm working on and all of the usual stuff, then please do click the link that you see on the screen. If you want to support the show by buying any of the games that you see playing on the screen, then there'll be affiliate links down below for that. That really does help the show. It means I get more to review for you guys. And yeah, I think that's enough for me. So yes, this is DJ Slope signing out, and hopefully I'll see you all next time.